Hey, in this recording, I'm going to show you how to deliver Kerberos transparent single sign-on to an iOS device, um, but also how to use that for transparent enrollment into Zscaler app on the mobile device, and also how to get it to never prompt the user for authentication. So first off, I've got my iPhone here. You can see it on the screen mirrored. Um, and I thought I'd just show you how Kerberos authentication looks on the device without any kind of profile on it. If I click sign in on this website, it's going to prompt me to authenticate. The website has sent a 401 authenticate negotiate challenge, and that's resulted in the device asking me for a username and password. Equally, if I just deploy a Kerberos profile to it, it will prompt me for a password at some point, which needs to validate against the Active Directory domain controllers or the KDC to be able to get a Kerberos ticket granting ticket, and then from there on, it'll go and get service tickets. So we're trying to automate that whole process. So let's take a look at a few things. Here I'm using Jamf. Any number of MDM products can support this, but yeah, this is relatively simple to go through. So I've created a profile here, and what we're going to do is we're going to use SCEP to get a certificate onto the device. So I've got SCEP configured here. SCEP is going to point to my domain controller. This is using Active Directory certificate services. I've completed all the standard stuff in here. And for this one, I could use variables. Indeed, if you were deploying this across multiple devices, you'd use variables for this. But the format of this is relatively important, or more specifically, it is absolutely important. So the subject needs to have CN, canonical name, equals, and then the full email address or user principal name of the user. You also need a subject alternative name in there. The DNS name of this, the important thing here is that it's the DNS name matches the realm, the Active Directory realm or the Active Directory domain name of the domain you can authenticate to, and you also need to provide a principal name for the user. Now, again within the MDM, we need to be able to get the SCEP device password for each credential you're going to enroll. So this configuration here allows it to go off and actually dynamically get the SCEP challenge. But for each user that it's pushing this profile down to. So I've configured this to go off to my SCEP admin page, and it'll pull back that credential. These credentials here, you'd obviously not use the same username. The other things that are important, 2048-bit private key. We're going to use it for digital signature and key encipherment. And then in the payload for single sign-on, I then have to associate that certificate with this payload. And it's important that these two things come down in the same iOS configuration profile. So the account name is mryan, and then make sure it's not fully qualified, or the principal name is not fully qualified, and the realm is capitalized, if that's even a word, in capitals, and the realm, the primary Active Directory domain name. And then I'm going to say anything that's within my directory in HTTP and HTTPS. If those things challenge for Kerberos, the device is then configured that it will send a Kerberos ticket for it. So I've got a certificate and I've got my Kerberos configuration. So let's do a couple of things here. So I can go ahead and if I come back up here, here is my configuration, sorry, that I was just in, and I can download it. And I have downloaded it. I can go ahead and open it here just to kind of show you how it looks in Apple configurator. Obviously, it can't be edited because it's been signed. So the com.apple.sso attribute or configuration options, these are not exposed in Apple Configurator, so it kind of makes it a bit of a challenge to you to do this without using an MDM. But the SCEP payload, again, can't be edited, and you can see all this, it's completed all in here. These variables here, the MS-SCEP challenge is what the MDM will go off and complete for each profile that it pushes down to a device. So it's all well and good to see it with the MDM, but I don't want to go off and transparently do all of these things. So let me show you how it looks in the payload that I'm creating. So I've got my profile here, and it's interesting the way that this thing looks. So first off, here is the MS-SCEP challenge page, and you can see if I refresh this, I'll get a new challenge for each time I query it. So the as it says, the password is only valid for 60 minutes. I could have a static passcode, relatively insecure if I wanted to do that. So I'm going to grab a new challenge password. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to drop that into my mobile config file. So here's the payload that this looks like. So I've got my challenge. It's got all those parameters around the key size, what the name of the instance is, what my subject is. My canonical name is mryan@welshgeek.net. I've got my subject alt names, DNS name, and my NT principal name, and it tells me where my SCEP URL is. So all of this is around the SCEP configuration. The second part of this is the Kerberos configuration. It says, okay, my principal name is mryan, my realm is welshgeek.net, and any of these prefix matches, I will, if they challenge me for Kerberos authentication, I will go and send a Kerberos ticket to them. I also included autologon.microsoft-azure-ad-sso.com because I occasionally will do Kerberos SSO directly against Active Directory. And it's important here that this UUID, payload certificate UUID, matches this UUID for the certificate. You'll see that those two are the same. You can see these two are the same. So all these two different parameters, two different payloads essentially, within the same profile. I have to link this UUID into this part of the payload. So that's all well and good. And then this last part of this configuration profile is the part for the Zscaler App settings. So Zscaler App settings basically say, okay, well, what I'm going to log in with mryan@welshgeek.net. And here are the parameters for the single sign-on. User is mryan, domain is welshgeek.net. I've bypassed my the SAML SP URLs, and away we go. So configuration does three things. It sets the SCEP configuration. SCEP configuration means it's going to go and get a certificate. The SSO configuration says here are my Kerberos configurations and the certificate that's going to give me my tickets. And then I've got my VPN configuration, which sets up how Zscaler App is going to be deployed. And Zscaler App is then going to start up. It's going to send me to my SAML server, my ADFS server, and the ADFS server will do Kerberos configuration, Kerberos authentication, and the other two bits will come together to give me transparent single sign-on to that. Before we get to that, though, it's also worth looking at the SCEP configuration. So SCEP is going to issue a certificate against this template here. It's called the Kerb2 template that I've created. And if we look at this template, the template has some specific parameters in it. So everything else is relatively standard around cryptography. I'm just going to pause there whilst it brings things back. Things that are important. Application policy, it needs to have Kerberos client authentication, it needs to have smart card login because effectively the device is behaving to be the user to get those ticket information. The issuance templates, nothing particularly wrong with that. I think there were a couple of OIDs. Just make sure that the OIDs are correct in here. And it needs digital signature and key exchange. And that's really about it. As long as it's issuing the certificates with those parameters, we should be good. So let's go ahead and I'm going to save this SSO Zscaler SCEP mobile config. I come across to my email, and I'm going to create a new message. Email mark iCloud.com, a SCEP configuration, and it should be SSO SCEP mobile config. Check the right one, and we'll click send. So let's go ahead and come back to this. We'll close that window down. Not worried about that. And we'll go into my email. So I've got my SCEP configuration here. And I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Obviously, MDM wouldn't do this, or you can download it via from a web server or whatever. Just as easy to send it via email. Saves me typing anything. And I come in here and I can see the profile that's been downloaded. So let's click on the details. So you can see it's got the three pieces in there. The SCEP configuration. It's got all the challenge information in there. My SSO configuration. And the Zscaler app configuration. So I'm happy with all of that. So let's go ahead and install that. It's going to ask me for my password. It's telling me it's got a VPN configuration in there. It's unsigned. And we click install. And away we go. So the profile's installed. Once that's completed, let's take a look in here again. So the certificate, you can see the common name in there. We can see the usage. We can see the DNS name and the NT principal name. And we can see all the other configuration. And you can see here the usage, client authentication, smart card login. So that's all good. The SSO configuration is in there, and the Zscaler app settings are fine. So we're all good with those. So let's go back in here, and if we were to go to ADFS WelshGeek.net IDP initiated sign on again, you'll see that I'll transparently sign in this time because that certificate is valid, and that's part of my Kerberos authentication process. So let me go ahead and kill that. We can close these apps down now. So if I go ahead and launch Zscaler, it'll automatically log in. Go ahead. And we get the transparent startup process. And it's all authenticated. Give it a second to connect. And we're on. So now I can go ahead and I can turn off my Wi-Fi, and I'll come onto my 4G connection. It is on 4G. It'll show the Wi-Fi link at the top because I'm tethered via the dock. But if I now go ahead here and launch something like my Apache web server, with a bit of luck, whilst it figures out where it is. Let's try something different because that could be offline. Let's go to my domain controller. Could be my 4G network is having some issues. That all seems to be connected. Didn't like that one. Let's try the Apache server. Ah, there we go. It just took a second to get there. So the Apache server is coming over Zscaler Private Access. Let's go to the ADFS server over Zscaler Private Access. Again, we could sign into that transparently. So clearly those are working. If we come over here and we go to admin privatezscaler.com and look in here, we can see those requests. Here's my ADFS request coming in. Here are the requests to the domain controller to get Kerberos tickets, and the requests to the Apache server succeeding after that. So, what does this mean? It means that we can deploy a certificate down to a device programmatically. That certificate identifies the user programmatically, and if we're using an MDM, we replace those variables with the appropriate usernames that you're deploying down to those devices. That certificate can then be used against Kerberos KDC to give me a ticket, and that ticket is then presented to the application servers to give me transparent authentication. I can do all of that, and that then integrates with Zscaler App. Zscaler App allows me to authenticate against my SAML server, in this case ADFS. The SAML server provides Kerberos authentication to sign in, and because of that and the previous configurations, we can now get transparent single sign-on end-to-end to enroll a user directly into Zscaler App, but also through Zscaler App to the applications that are advertised through Zscaler Private Access. Hope this was useful. If you have any questions, let me know. Mark@zscaler.com.